A family's search for their roots uncovers a chilling secret. Their missing uncle was replaced by an imposter decades ago. As they delve deeper into the mystery, they uncover a dark tale of identity theft that has haunted their lineage for years. When my siblings and I decided to create a family tree, none of us expected the outcome to be so unexpected. We grew up in a small town in the southern United States, in a house full of old photographs, family stories, and traditions. Our parents were always proud of their traditions, and so were we. There was always a full house of U.S. grandparents, aunts, and uncles, many children. My paternal grandfather was the 9th child in the family. My maternal grandmother was the 7th. I always thought that I was very lucky to be born into such a large family. But then one day at a family dinner, after yet another conversation about how much we all resemble our ancestors, Max, my cousin, suggested, "What if we put together our family tree? It would be great. We could show our children and grandchildren where we came from." Everyone immediately supported the idea, and the next day, as the eldest, I took over the organization. The process started out as something simple and carefree. I pulled out old family albums from a chest, started sorting through documents and writing down information about our ancestors. Alex and Max joined in a little later, helping us search for information on the internet, comparing our records with online resources and correspondence with distant relatives. In general, nothing special. We were already used to such family projects. But everything changed when we got to the generation of our grandparents. I started with documents that related to my grandfather, James. He was born in 1912, and our whole family always knew this date because it was associated with an important event. His birthday was marked on the day of the end of the First World War. It was a symbolic moment, and we were always proud of this fact. But when I started checking church records and official documents, one of them turned up a strange date, 1908. I thought that this could be a mistake. Perhaps the numbers were mixed up in the entry. But then, after checking a few more sources, I discovered that in other documents, Grandpa had a completely different last name, not our family name, James, but Johnson. I stopped. This wasn't just a mistake in one record. There were several different documents, proving that not everything added up. I checked the rest of the data, and as it turned out, in some records, our family didn't match up at all with what we thought. My uncle's birth certificate, who was Grandpa's younger brother, didn't list his name, but Thomas, with a completely different year of birth. I could understand if this was just a coincidence, but these discrepancies continued with each new generation. At first we thought it might just be a paperwork error or some kind of misunderstanding, but the more we dug, the more suspicious we became. Finally, Max suggested talking to our Aunt Mary, who was the eldest in the generation and knew much more about our family than we did. Mary lived in another city, and we went to see her, hoping that she could explain the oddities we had found. When we arrived, she immediately understood what we were talking about. "You don't understand what you found," she said when I explained that we had discovered discrepancies in old records. After a pause, Mary began to tell a story that she had kept for many years. She was young when, in the 1940s, on the eve of World War II, a tragic incident occurred in her family. One of our relatives, my Uncle John, a teenager, disappeared under mysterious circumstances. Things were different then, with police not always able to investigate cases effectively, and his disappearance was never solved. But even stranger, a few months after his disappearance, a man who claimed to be John returned to their home. "He was just like John," Mary said. "He knew all of us. His mannerisms and behavior were the same. He said he had been captured and had miraculously gotten away." We were, of course, glad he was back, but there was something different about him. Alex and Max couldn't believe it. How could it be? Was he someone else? Mary continued, he was ours. But not quite. There was something in his eyes, something strange. But we all continued to accept him because there was no other explanation. Over time, it became normal. He became part of the family again, and no one questioned who he really was. Alex, Max, and I sat in silence, trying to process what had been said. Mary brought an old photograph of that same John sitting among his family. I immediately noticed that in this photograph he was noticeably older than he should have been, and his face was somehow alien. We all looked at each other. This man was not who he claimed to be. We continued our investigation, decided to go to the local police and dig into the archives. It was not easy, but family ties played into our hands again, and we were allowed into the archives. It turned out that in the area at that time there were several cases of people disappearing and then returning with the same strange stories about their lost life. It seemed too incredible, but with each new discovery we became more and more convinced that there was a person in our family whose identity was stolen. After this discovery, we spent more months trying to figure out who was really hidden in our family. We couldn't help but think that this was someone who had stolen not only John's life, but his place in our family. Someone whose past was hidden behind other people's names and dates. It is clear that this was the time of the Second World War. No one was particularly bothered with documents. No one had time for it. But how could you not notice that the person who returned to our family had different documents? How did he even explain it? But Mary could not answer this question. She simply did not remember. She says that everyone was in a panic. At that time, many of our relatives went to war and no one paid attention to the fact that John had strange documents and where they came from. But this is impossible. Surely someone from the family knew what was going on. It is a pity that this generation is no longer with us, and we cannot ask them. All we managed to Google is that at that time he could have become part of a group that was engaged in the replacement of identities in certain circles, when people lost their identities due to deaths, criminal cases, or other circumstances. This group was engaged in forging documents for people who needed to hide or start a new life. Perhaps John was a victim of such a scheme, but later he was replaced in our family, using our history and documents. Our family became part of this shadow operation, and apparently no one except a few senior members knew what was really going on. This explained why documents appeared in the archives so strangely, and why the family so easily accepted someone else's identity. And so an innocent investigation and a desire to give a gift to grandchildren led to the disclosure of such an unusual secret. Our family tree no longer looked like a mere memory of ancestors. It became a reminder that there was a person in our family whose identity was stolen, whose name was forever lost, and in his place remained the one who replaced him. In hindsight, we began to understand that many of those strange and opaque moments in our family were connected precisely to these altered documents. The branches of the family tree that we were collecting were mutilated by forgeries, and now we were faced with the task of not only finding out the truth, but also trying to figure out who was responsible for these changes. So, Grandpa James, or John, is our ancestor, but he is most likely not the son of our great-grandparents. At some point, our family changed. Wow, to be honest, I still have a hard time wrapping my head around it. In the end, we gave up on the idea of a family tree. Sometimes the past should stay in the past. But this thought still haunts me. Maybe someone has encountered something similar in their family? Were you able to dig up the truth?